Today, I am super excited to welcome Nora to the channel. So Nora, welcome to Wife Without Kids.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here.
We got connected a few months ago and we started having some conversations about being child-free. My first question for you is, what made you realize that you had a choice in having kids?
Like the first time I was like really aware of actually making this choice, or like getting to know that I'm having the choice, when I was together in a relationship with my ex-partner, and we were kind of arguing about it. And he was like, I really want to have kids, Nora. I'm really into it. Like I feel for it. How about you? And I was like, I'm gonna have kids someday anyways. And it's just the way how it goes and stuff like that. And then I was like, oh no, that feels kind of wrong. Like, if I'm really honest to myself, it feels wrong. And then I was like torn between yes and no. And this is how I realized you have a choice. Like, you really have a choice. And it's like in this case, in this situation, it was really important to me to make, let's say, the right choice, because he was totally into it. And I realized, okay, I'm not that into it, and I need to make the choice right now, which was a lot of pressure for me from that time. But this is the first time I was like, okay, I really need to think about that question. I really need to make up my mind about it, because there's gonna be consequences for our relationship.
Wow, that's pretty intense right off the bat to have to make a decision of whether or not you're going to continue in this relationship.
I was 1 year in New Zealand, and we met 3 months before I left. And I was like, I'm really sorry, but I'm leaving. I'm leaving in 3 months to New Zealand. Like, I quit my job, I don't have my flat anymore, and I really need some time for myself, and I really wanted to be in New Zealand for a year. And he was like, no, that's fine, and we work it out, and we're gonna just wait for each other. And like, we made the year, it was all good. And when I was back, it was half a year after it. He was like, I want to have kids, and what do you think about it? So we weren't actually dating a lot. We weren't been together a lot, but he had a strong feeling that he wants to have kids, and like not waiting much longer. And this is when I realized, okay, it's getting quite intense, and I need to make a choice.
That must have been really difficult, because it's such a big decision whether or not you want to have kids. And when there's this added pressure of, well, this relationship might not continue, that's a lot. So how did you, when you ultimately let him know, what was his reaction?
It was kind of a process, to be honest, Hannah. It was a little bit like, in the beginning, I was kind of like torn between the sides. And like, being one day, this is the man I'm planning my future with, like, and we're gonna have kids anyway someday. That's gonna be fine, like everyone wants some kids, right? And I was like, you're gonna be the same. It takes maybe a little bit longer, and then you're gonna be there. It's gonna be fine. And then the other day, I was like, no, it doesn't feel right. The worst thing actually was, which really kept me between the chairs and being torn, was like me imagining him in a few years, like seeing some picture on Insta or something with his beautiful wife, his beautiful kids, and I'm gonna be like, this could have been me. I made the wrong choice, and now I don't have anyone anymore. I'm gonna be by myself, and I don't find a person, a partner, who accepts my decision. And this was actually the worst case scenario. I'm like looking at that picture in a couple of years, seeing him happily married with his beautiful kids, and I'm gonna be just by myself.
I think that fear of regret when you're in a relationship is super real. Like that's something that I'm sure has gone through the minds of most of us if we've been in that situation, thinking, okay, I can stay with this person, and there's so many things I really love about them, and I can see myself with having a future with them. But then the kid thing, you're just like, oh, if you're going to have kids, you want to do it because, like you said, it's going to be the right thing for you. And you had such a strong feeling that just wasn't where you wanted to be and not where you saw yourself. And I think this is where a lot of people are like, but you might change your mind, right? Like, there's a lot of people that come up with that and they say that to us. And then we think like, well, what if I do change my mind? I'm sure that thought went through your head as well.
Absolutely. Like I was actually meeting a lot of friends of mine, like who were already pregnant, already had kids, and some of them were like, "Are you gonna change your mind? Like, don't waste that. Like, keep that relationship. Like, you're gonna regret it for sure at some stage." But there, or like one friend of mine, she said, Nora, it's gonna be hard to find a partner who accepts your child-free lifestyle. But then there were also some friends of mine who were like, if you're not 100% into it, don't do it.
In those moments, that's the honesty that we need to hear from parents, right? If you're kind of like on that fence and you're thinking about it and you're thinking of doing it maybe for someone else because you want to keep the relationship going, right? Those moments give us so much clarity when people are like, no, sometimes it sucks and you better want it. When you look back on that decision that you had to make, do you think you made the right one?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, once like when we both decided, or when I was like, Michael, like this won't change. Like I'm really sorry, but I really don't feel it. And he was like starting to realize, okay, I don't want to push you. If you don't feel like it, I don't want to push you. And then we were kind of starting to separate our ways, and it felt a little bit strange. I was planning my future with him, and he was planning his future with me, obviously. Like, I feel it so clearly now, like this one direction, and like being totally fine and happy with it, and like totally released that I'm not in that situation anymore.
I'm so glad that you're being open about this, because I get messages from people who've been in this situation, and I personally never have been. And so it's always hard for me to I'm trying to put myself in that situation and think like, okay, my first thought would be like, don't have kids if you don't want them, right? But it's easy to say that when you're not the one that's in love with someone and that wants to, has been talking about building a life with them, and then realizing that, if you're going to be really true to yourself, you have to walk away from that relationship. Not the breakups are easy. So I think the longer you stay with someone, the harder it is to separate yourself from them.
Absolutely. I had one girl from Instagram, or one woman, she approached me and she said, Nora, I'm also struggling with the question. I'm already married and we bought that house together and everything, and now we realize that we're not, like, we don't have the same opinion about that. They now realize this, and she said, like, I'm kind of torn. But she already said, okay, like, I don't feel it, like, I really don't feel it, but he feels so much. But we need to separate ways. And now, it's a little bit more complicated, because you've been married, you're married, you have a house together, like there's much more to organize, obviously. So this is, this is why I always say, okay, make that choice before it's getting stronger and more intense, and because it's getting just harder and harder, once you've married and you bought things together and stuff, like it's just getting harder.
This is the conversation that people need to have right at the beginning when they start dating. Or if you're an online dater, right? People will be putting it in their profiles because it's that important of a question. And I think with this question, it's not too soon to talk about it on a first date, because no one likes to waste their time, right? And you don't want to find yourself in a situation where you're suddenly like, oh no, like I've invested 6 months with this person. We want completely different things when it comes to what our family is going to look like.
Absolutely. And to be honest with you, I'm single right now and I'm dating right now. And I get the feeling, because this was such an important lesson to learn from this relationship, I'm like super open about it. And like, maybe not for the first date, but like, once you realize, okay, you like each other and it's getting more intense, then talking about it. I found it hard sometimes, and I'm curious about your experience about it. Sometimes I feel like, okay, I need to talk about it. I need to say what I'm thinking right now. I don't know what's going to happen in 5 or 6 or 7 years. Maybe something happens where I'm going to change my mind. I don't think so though. And I won't, I won't let anyone wait for this, right? To say, okay, maybe I want in 3 or 4 years. That's probably not gonna happen. And still, I feel like I'm having a fear of getting refused. Like, because there are men outside there who are like, okay, Like, this is strange. You're a woman and you don't want to have children? Like, this is strange. Like, I don't want to be rejected. And sometimes I'm like, okay, I need to say this, but there are men outside who still reject women for that because they think it's kind of strange if you don't want to have children.
I get messages from people that are like, well, what if I just get nobody? Like, what if I'm alone? And, you know, some people want to be alone and want to spend their life alone and are not interested in having a partner for life or getting married. But other people really like that. They want to be able to spend their life with somebody else, right? For me, and I don't know, I guess I could call it luck. I was a very shy and introverted person. And so when my husband and I started dating, I was still in graduate school. So I was living in the US and he was in Canada. And so the beginning of our relationship was actually long distance for quite a long time. And so I really just kind of kept that to myself. But I think when I got to a place where I recognized that this relationship was going to go somewhere, I did bring it up. And again, I recommend that maybe people bring it up a little sooner than I did, because I think I waited maybe a little bit long. But again, I've changed over time. I've become more confident in being able to speak about it. But when I brought it up to him, he was just like, oh, he's like, okay. It was almost like it never really crossed his mind. So he wasn't super like wanting to be a dad, but like absolutely didn't want kids. He was kind of in the middle of that road. And so I always was kind of like in the back of my mind, oh, like what if he changes his mind and he's, you know, suddenly like, no, I really want to be a dad. But he's always been like, no, he's like, I love the life that we have and I love the life that we've built together. I don't feel like I'm missing anything at all. And our life is filled with nieces and nephews. And so, you know, we spend our kid time with them.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, that's good. And this is a good thing about it, because I found also that there are a lot of men out there being like, okay, it could be fine being a dad, but I wouldn't, you know, it's also fine to be child-free, to enjoy your child-free life. Like being like, okay, both is fine for me, right? And I'm also quite happy because 5 days ago, my sister got her child. And I'm just super happy to be an auntie, right? Like, I'm really looking forward to them. She's like super cute and everything. And my parents are also like, totally freaked out and happy and everything. And like, this is amazing. Like, I really love being a great auntie. And this can be enough. This can be just enough, and it's fine. And you have your, you know, experiences, but then also being able to, you know, enjoy it with your sister together, and also being able to have your child-free life.
Mm-hmm. Is this your first time being an auntie?
Yes.
Oh, it's so fun, Nora. Like I love being an auntie. You're gonna have so much fun doing that.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Absolutely. So yeah, that's amazing.
How did your family respond to you when you were like, yeah, I just don't think I want kids?
This is funny because I was like talking with them, and my stepmom, she said like she's fine, like she never had kids in her life, my stepmom, and because my mom died very early when I was a child, so they've been going out for years and years, my dad and my stepmom, and she never had kids by herself. So she was like, oh, I totally understand you, like I enjoy being an auntie and everything. And my father was a little bit like, looking at your life and how you live it and what your priorities are. To be honest with you, I cannot imagine you with children. But he said it in a kind way, not like, oh, you're not gonna make it, but like, you know, like you have so many other priorities, you wouldn't have time for it, or like be like, okay, like I couldn't imagine, but in a very kind way. And I was like, oh, okay, that's fine.
That's fair enough. He's being honest.
Absolutely, yeah. So my sister was always a little bit more family focused in terms of having her own family and having her own children. So she was always like that. And she told me, you know, Nora, you're gonna feel it one day. And I'm like, I'm not too sure. And you know, I'm gonna be a happy auntie instead.
I actually was just talking about this in a piece of content that I made about like that maternal instinct is just going to kick in for us someday. And I just don't think that that's true, because there's actually scientific research that's now showing that that's not a thing. A woman doesn't hit some magical age and suddenly she wants to be a parent no matter what, right? There are just some women who have no desire to be a mother it's actually normal not to want kids. And I don't feel like anyone talks about that. And so we feel super weird when we're like, oh yeah, we don't want kids, and we're like the only person in our friend group that doesn't have kids or in our family, right?
Absolutely. And to be honest with you, Hannah, I like some people really think like, oh, something happened in your child time, right? That you had a really bad childhood and you suffered so much. And then this is absolutely the reason why you don't want to have kids now, because your past was so bad about it, or you had some trauma or some situation which was quite bad. I'm like, no, nothing of that happened. And I know other friends, like they're happily child-free, nothing of that ever happened to them. They're just normal people with other normal desires, and just like a life with children doesn't count into that. And as you said, it's so important to talk about it and to make sure it's gonna be a normal thing someday, right? And it's people gonna accept it and not gonna ask you anymore. And yeah, I'm hoping for a world, let's say, where you don't have to justify yourself, because both decisions are completely fine in each direction.
We're keeping our fingers crossed that the more we talk about it, the more people see it as just being like the other option, right? Like you can be a parent or you cannot be a parent. And those are the two options, and they're equally valuable. Nothing changes in a person's value if they don't have children. And that's just the conversation that needs to happen. I also think that most of us, when we were growing up, were just told, especially as girls, right? We're told, oh, one day when you're a mom, or one day when you have kids. I don't ever remember an adult saying to me, hey, do you want to be a mom someday? It's just assumed that from the time you're a little girl, you're going to be a parent.
Absolutely.
How did you start talking about your child-free choice in a way that was like a little bit more public? What made you want to do that?
I did my coaching apprenticeship a couple of years ago, and I was like kind of still trying to find my topic. And I was like, this is your topic. This is what I want to do. Like, this is the only thing I want to do in my coaching business. The only thing. This is like such a narrow topic that are not many people talking about it. So I was like, starting also the YouTube channel and using Insta and stuff, also to talk about it and to use these platforms to get this message out. And I'm sure that there are women out there who don't find their own opinion, because it's such, it's such a live topic with so much pressure on it. And this is why I'm like, okay, we need to talk about it in order to prevent women having the wrong decision in the end of the day.
You're completely right. I mean, it's a very niche coaching topic, but it's such an important one because it's such a life-changing decision whether or not you choose to have kids. And as someone who's gone through it, you've experienced what that hurt and what that frustration is like, and having to make that really tough decision. You stayed true to what you felt you needed to do. You've come out the other side. There's hope, right? You can still enjoy life, and life is still an adventure, and you're not missing out.
To be honest with you, it's amazing when you have this decision, when you don't have this decision anymore, when you're like clear in it, and you don't need to think about it anymore, and like there's so much pressure on it, and it's amazing when you just have your decision either way.
People just need to hear that. I think people often feel like they're alone, right? Like I hear from people who are like, oh, I feel like I'm the only child-free person. I'm like, no, wait, there's a whole lot of us out here, right? We need to get you into a community so you know that you aren't the only person. But I think even to take that a step further, feeling like you're in a relationship where two people don't want the same things, you probably do feel like you're the only one, because maybe there's nobody around you that's ever gone through that. And most people will just say, oh, just get married, the feelings will come and you'll just have a baby and everything will be fine, which is basically the opposite of what that person needs to hear in that moment. And then you now have the tools and the ability to be able to say, I've been there, I get it, let me help you. I feel like that's such a gift to people.
Yeah, and I totally get it. Like, especially when you're like, oh, I'm the only one. This is why all the social platforms are so important. Like, imagine a couple of years ago, our parents or our grandparents. I mean, how do you think like our grandparents, how much they thought about the child question? Like, probably not too much, because it wasn't a thing. You just had children, right? And there's so much more connection today, and like talking about it and connecting on these platforms. I mean, you're in Canada, I'm in Germany right now, and we can talk about it and exchange our experience on that. And it's so important to have a big community and to talk about it all around the world. Yeah.
And this is obviously a very broad question, but based on your experience, how open are people to the child-free life? Like, do people recognize it's there? Are people like, what are you doing? This is super weird. What's been your experience?
Oh, it depends totally. Well, I just can speak from, the people I know and I'm talking with and like what I'm seeing. But like, I mean, it's a generation question. Like I realize like my generation is like much more open to it. And it's like, okay, there is a choice. Like a lot of people realize that there is a choice. And it's also fine if you decide that you have a child-free life. For a lot of people that is fine. But if you're looking in the generation of my parents or maybe the generation of my grandparents, a lot of them still understand. Like it's a lot of a generation question. Like a lot of them are like, they don't get it because they didn't ask themselves the question when they were in our age that much.
I feel like that's been my experience as well. I guess to think from sitting in a place where I know that I have that option, it's just such a different world. And I think there's still, like you said, there's a lot of people, maybe even like our age or younger, that don't recognize that they actually do have a choice.
And it depends totally on, like which path you're seeing. Like see, like a person in our age is totally confronted by people who really don't understand. Like the parents are asking for grandchildren, the grandparents are asking for grandchildren. And maybe also the friends are like, everyone is having children and you feel like totally alone by it. And if you're just, surrounded by people who want you to see pregnant, then it's getting kind of hard. I don't know if you know the book Regretting Motherhood.
Yes.
I mean, this book got a lot of shit stored because it's just not accepted as a mother to talk about that you're actually regretting being a mother, right? Like they all say they love their children, they just regret about this, they're just regretting the situation they are in. I think it's really brave talking about it. It's absolutely brave. And I even think like there are women out there, mothers out there, who maybe have a little bit of like, okay, I feel maybe a little bit like this, but I would never ever talk about it. And this is how the truth never comes out. And I mean, this is a very sensitive topic, of course. And but this is obviously, you see that there are women regretting being a mother.
I think it's really important that we have honest conversations, even if they're hard conversations, because we're not doing anyone, like I feel like we're almost lying to people by being like, oh, motherhood's like amazing and it has like all these like sparkly shiny things that come along with it, and no one talks about the other side of motherhood. And I'm sure it is amazing, but the other side of that is that there are some really hard things about being a mom. And I think when someone is making that choice, whether or not they want to be a mom, they should hear both sides.
Once you've decided you want to have children, there's no way back, right? Like there's no possibility of trying and buying or like giving it away after 2 weeks if you don't like it. Like there's no such a possibility like that. So it's important to think about. It's a life decision. Like you wouldn't, with other life decisions, you wouldn't also be like, okay, I'm just gonna do it, whatever. You also think about it. Why not also with the child question, like really think about it. What is your opinion on it? What do you think? What do you want for your life?
We think about all these other things. We think about what kind of career we want to have. We think about whether or not we want to rent or buy a house. We make ourselves pros and cons lists, right? Like our whole life is based on like, when do I want this or do I want that? And what are the benefits and what are the things that might be challenging about it? And yet somehow people seem almost offended when we think about having a kid in those terms, right? People just think it's a default. Well, you just have to do it, but we don't have to do it, right? And it's almost dangerous to think that we're putting no thought into this absolutely huge life-changing decision.
Well, for me, I can just speak for me how I felt sometimes. I'm like, if I'm having a child-free life, like if I'm staying child-free, I think I didn't make it. I think I didn't make it in life. Like stupid. Like where's this coming from? But I also thought like, then your life's not gonna have a happy end then. Well. And I'm really happy that I'm not thinking about that anymore. But I mean, somewhere these thoughts are coming from, right? And then you're like, oh, well, everyone is having children and these happy endings. It's not like my life is not gonna have a happy ending if I don't have children.
Right, and I think it's because we hear it so much. We hear it from the time we're little. That's the importance of talking about it, right? We each have our areas where we can reach people and talk to them and say, absolutely, this is a choice. If you could talk to someone that was in this situation that you were in, what is a piece of advice that you would give them?
Try to find slots where you just need time for yourself, thinking about it here and then, and like being sure you're just with your thoughts, not with other thoughts, depending on your friends or your partner or your parents or anything like that. To making sure you're staying with yourself, and also maybe be in a kind of meditation or something like that as well. And like being sure, okay, once in a while, I'm just sitting down and just focusing on my thoughts about it. And here and there, try to see, okay, is there something changing? Am I going in like one or the other direction more? But to be honest with you, like I feel like a lot of women like I've talked to about this topic, like if you don't have that like intrinsic motivation, if you've been years thinking about that question, probably you're happy with a child-free life. This is what I'm saying. I mean, there's always a decision, but like my experiences, like women who've been thinking about it like for years and years and years, maybe happy with a child-free life and just need some more courage to stand up for it.
I actually think back to when I was growing up, and maybe tell me how you felt about this, but I didn't know very many couples that didn't have kids, and it certainly wasn't something that you talked about, right? Like, if you see a couple or your parents' friends and they didn't have kids, you certainly did not ask them why they didn't have kids. And I can understand, obviously, that's a very private thing, but when you're a kid and you're not exposed to anyone that has made the choice not to have kids, you just think, oh, they didn't have kids because biologically weren't able to have kids, right? Like in a kid's mind, that's, I guess, how I viewed people who didn't have kids. And again, I didn't know many people who didn't. If you're not ever exposed to the idea that, hey, this couple just didn't have kids because they didn't want to be parents, you just don't ever think that that's even an option for life.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, I just remember when I came across as a child or as a teenager with child-free couples, it was always a little bit like other people were like, there's something wrong with them. Like, I don't know, like not if they didn't, like if they couldn't have children, then it was like never talk about it. It's top secret, they can't have children biologically, and like everyone is like suffering with them, right? Because you feel like, okay, you feel sad for them because they wanted to have kids but they can't have one. Mm-hmm. But like having the choice, or like people who decided, okay, we don't want to have kids, to be honest with you, I didn't meet that many of them.
Like, it's kind of this thing that's covered in mystery. And certainly for people who've had like problems with infertility and stuff, obviously that's a super private thing. And that's not what I'm referring to at all. It's more the people who've made the choice to not have kids because they didn't want to be parents, but then felt like they couldn't speak about it. And other people just acted weird around them, right?
These grumpy, there's this grumpy couple having like, I don't know, either 10 cats or 2 dogs. And like because they don't have children and they need something to fill that gap, and like always being like, they're not the socialized, like they're not super social people in a way, and like this is rubbish, obviously.
Talking more openly about it, and that's one thing I love about our generation, maybe, right? Whereas like technology has taken off and it's given us the ability to be able to talk to people we don't even know, people we'll never meet in person. It's given us the ability to talk about our choice with other people. And if you think about it, that is actually an incredibly powerful way to send messages. Because before it was like whatever you heard on the radio or saw on the news, right? Or read in the newspaper. I mean, or magazines, that's basically how you got your news. And so there's a lot of maybe people that were not represented, I guess is the best way to say it, right? There were child-free people were not represented in the news, or if they were, or like even if you think about movies, right? They were like super, or in books, they were super weird people. If the lady didn't have kids, she wasn't married, and she was just like this grumpy person, and she was kind of miserable, and she wasn't having a great life, and she had a bunch of cats, right? Like that's who the child-free person was. And certainly that's not the majority of child-free people.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely not.
Have you had moments of doubt, moments where you were like, I don't know, like maybe I'll change my mind?
To be honest with you, after the breakup, I was super clear. Like there was no single situation anymore I was like thinking, okay, like this could be wrong. Like, ever.
That clarity must be so refreshing, especially when you're in this place where you have to make this decision. And that can be really hard, right? But you made that final decision, and then it's almost like you were just like, okay, the weight's been lifted off my shoulders. This is my choice. I'm good with it. And now I can continue to live life and not have to keep thinking about it, right? Because that must be almost like, in a way, like so overwhelming to have this decision weighing on your mind constantly.
Absolutely. And I'm quite happy actually to be like that I had that relationship and to be in a very let's say in a situation with a lot of pressure, because you had to find a solution, and I was really thinking about it, and I was forced to thinking about it in that situation. And actually it was uncomfortable, but now I'm quite happy about it, because I really thought it through, and I talked with a lot of people, and I'm like, okay, I'm still hearing the no. It doesn't matter who I'm talking to. Either way, like if it's a person supporting me or not supporting me, I'm still hearing a clear no. And I'm happy about it. I'm so happy about it.
I'm so glad that you were able to, out of that relationship, get that clarity.
Absolutely. And it makes life so much easier, because there's nothing which will hold me back, basically. So this makes it a lot easier, because I feel like a lot of people are like, like there has to be certain planning because you want to achieve this, like in a career, for example, you want to achieve a certain level on a career ladder, let's say, or like, or with traveling or anything else, like you want to achieve something first before you want to have kids. And like this all starts when you're like, okay, like I'm never going to have kids, and I can achieve much more than I thought about it. And I can do it whenever, or like I'm gonna find a time slot for it for sure, because I'm not gonna have kids.
There's a certain amount of like freedom and flexibility that life has, and I'm just so used to it that sometimes when I look at families, I think like, oh yeah, they don't have it in the same way. Things are different, right? Like the kids are in school, they can't just like take them out and go on vacation all the time, or go away, or whatever the thing is, right? It just feels like life is really open to whatever we might want to experience and whatever we might want to do. And there's something about that, like to me, it also maybe means that life is a little bit unknown. And to me, that's actually exciting. Like it's kind of exciting not to have every single thing in your life kind of scheduled out, mapped out for the next like 18 years. I really like that feeling of being like, I could be doing this next year, or I could be doing that, and I don't really know. And that's part of the fun of being child-free, in my opinion, anyway.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's the freedom is amazing. And like I'm like sometimes, okay, Nora, like sometimes if you have like thinking about this or thinking about that and thinking I'm having that kind of problem or something like that, I'm like, this is all vanishing when you're thinking about all the time you still have, and like all the freedom you have, and like being self-determined, and and also like being able, and now I'm really confident, also like being able to find a partner who accepts the decision and to share a life with a partner, and like having lots of fun things waiting for you together because you just have made the same decision about it. And there's so much more waiting for you. This is amazing.
How do you think people can be confident in their child-free choice?
Well, I mean, they're like being comfortable about it is, I think, talking about it is the first thing. Like, because there will be comments everywhere. Like, still, like comments can be there anytime. Like, I'm still getting comments, and being like, once you've realized, like, I'm happy with our children, I'm happy about it, and you're feeling more confident, and then talking it out loud makes you even more confident about it. And it takes a little bit learning at the beginning to say it out loud. And as I earlier mentioned, like with dating, like this is my learning right now, being able to communicate that, like in like early stages of dating, and like be like, okay, I've made my decision on that, and I'm quite clear about that. And what do you think, right? What do you think about it? And I think you can learn it to be confident and like put it out there and talk about it, and then feeling even better because you're able to talk it out loud.
Yeah, that's such a good point. I think it's actually a process, right? Like we kind of hit these different places in our life where we're making decisions about things. And it is definitely a process learning to be comfortable. And like the experiences that you've had in your life and the experiences that I've had in my life. And then now that we're choosing to share them, it kind of takes you along a journey almost in a sense, right? Where we're in different places and we're learning different things, but it's giving us confidence in our own choice. It's giving us confidence to share and encourage other people to share. And you're right, I think sharing, actually, when you say it out loud to yourself, when you say it out loud to other people, even knowing that you're gonna get, some people leaving negative comments or saying negative things to you, it's your life and it's your decision. And being able to kind of be in charge of that decision and be like proud that like, hey, this is who I am. And those negative comments aren't ever going to change my mind. Like you said, right? We're rocks in our decision. No one can say anything to me that would change my mind personally, nothing, right? Like my decision's been made, your decision's been made. But I think there's a lot of power in speaking about it and hearing yourself say it.
And this is why it's important also to realize it's a process, and also trying to, it might gonna take some time. In the beginning you might feel like weird or funny in the beginning, but like putting yourself out there and like trying to being really clear what you actually think, will you make more comfortable in the end of the day. So, and I can encourage everyone being like, okay, I can see myself being very happy in child-free life. Be like, talk about it and feel confident with every word you say it. And like, it's a process, as you said. You can feel super comfortable after a while and talk like we do right now about it, and being fine with it. Absolutely.
And sometimes some of us take smaller steps than other people, right? Like I feel like it took me a really long time to feel comfortable enough to talk about, like in my mind, I already knew that I wasn't going to have kids, but taking that step to talk about it, like start a YouTube channel and post about it on Instagram was hard for me. For a number of different reasons. I'm super introverted. I'm really private. I don't like seeing myself on camera. There was a lot of reasons why. Opening yourself up to a world where you're going to be criticized and misunderstood and misinterpreted in what you say, it takes a certain amount of, I don't know, like something in here, right? What you want to tell people about being child-free is more important than the negativity you're going to get, because you're going to touch someone's life. You're going to be able to have someone message you back and be like, oh my goodness, I didn't even know I had a choice. And I think those are the moments, those are the people that we do it for.
And I'm sure when more people start and, be brave and like start to talk about it like openly and be like, I'm just gonna say it now, like I'm happy with a child-free life. I'm sure you're gonna meet more child-free friends. And like when people start talking about it, they will find other people, not be alone anymore. I'm sure about that.
Thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for sharing. And thank you for sharing your really personal story, because I know there are going to be people watching this that are like, yeah, I'm in that situation. And they might, if you're listening and you're in that situation, get a hold of Nora, because I'm pretty sure she's got something really insightful beyond even what we talked about here today.
Hannah, thank you very much. It was amazing to talk to you today about it. And another sign and another possibility to find people who are maybe still a little bit shy on the topic, and to give another little let's say another opportunity to think about it openly and to talk about it openly at some stage. Hannah, thank you so much. It was amazing.
Oh, you're so welcome.